We have to create enough space on these panels to let people be themselves. Otherwise, we don't all have the same what is it called, fingerprint, blueprint, DNA. Stop telling people there's one way to be successful in a marriage. If that works for you, then you've got to show up and have enough confidence to say, this is what has worked for me. And me and my wife, or me and my husband, have been successful by way of this. And this is my advice. This may not work for every woman. This may not work for every man, but this is where I found success. And I feel like a lot of you are very rigid in that, very one sided, very fixated, and you have no care outside of what you think and how people and what people are going through and the dynamics, right? Every black woman is not the same. Every black man is not the same. Every single mother is not the same. And y'all got to start, if you want to evolve in these spaces, you got to get away from these one sided ass talking points. That's all I'm saying. They're
You know what? Believe it or not, I think this is the first time ever I actually agree with Queen Sheba. Welcome back to Money, Marriage, and Media. I'm your host, Mike, and today we're looking for 1,000 subscribers. The video is there are not too many problems a woman can't solve. It's interesting. Let's kind of see where this is going. We're looking at Lapeef Experience. That's the channel. The show is called The Solution. We're back with that one again. So let's go ahead and hit the play button.
Coming from the man's perspective, I guess, just like the way husbands view this, I can't be present for everybody's relationship, but
Let's see if we can get that better. Clean that up a little bit.
there are not too many problems a woman cannot solve if she doesn't step out of her femininity.
Whoa.
And it's almost everybody's relationship.
Gotta hear that again.
There are not too many problems a woman cannot solve if she doesn't step out of her femininity. And it's almost as if the same way y'all are built to bow down to masculinity naturally and submit to it, a man is eventually going to submit to your femininity. I find that too many women cross over into frustration naturally, right? If you're not getting your way, we know that in modern times, you're just like, well, I could take the other route, we could, because you're frustrated. I do not find that a woman cannot melt a man down by staying purely and uniquely feminine, because even if he was completely wrong, if you want to make a man feel sorry, don't step out of your femininity. That's when a man is like, I can't believe I did that shit to her, bro. What's wrong with me? I'm only ever remorseful when she is purely feminine. Like any woman I'm dealing with, whether it's at work, anywhere, as soon as you posture me like you would do, we just started a whole vicious cycle of fuckery all over again, right? So I would just say likely I cannot be present in everybody's relationship, but that's my only advice on the topic. Remain in your femininity at all times, and you will melt that man down and listen to what you have to say.
How does your wife disarm you? Trigger Mike.
I have received media training that doesn't allow me to answer such questions. Sorry.
Well, I agree with Trigger Mike, because I know my brother and my father both said that if you never like attack a man or lambaster him or call him outside of his name, if he ever goes to that point with you and he says something like he calls you the B word, you'd be like, listen, I don't speak to you that way. I need you to bring it down a notch. And he's like, you know what? You're right. You don't. So he brings it down automatically. But if you guys go tit for tat and reach that same level of anger, then he feels like he's a...
Translation, you appeal to his logic. At that point, yeah, most men will, the logic will take over, and that will prevail over everything else. But if you're going to challenge him, if you're going to approach him as if if you're going to accept the low-level threat of violence, because that's really what's going on, all bets are off. And in some cases, you do get that extreme where, because men know that low-level threat of violence is real, to the point where if it goes too far, one of us may not be coming out alive. You never want to go there. If you're women, you never want to go there with a man, because it's almost like you're backing, because his mind is telling him, no, I can't do this with a woman. because its programming is telling him everything else is wrong. But if you back him into a corner enough, yeah, it's just when you get domestic violence, when guys feel like this is the only way. Yeah, it's not an excuse. It's just what I'm saying is that, ladies, don't put yourself in that predicament. It's not. It doesn't end well. This is why guys try to. This is why guys, when we see each other on the street, we give each other the nod. If we don't know these guys, well, outside of some regional, some different regions around the United States, most men, when we see each other on the street, we have to nod as a form of respect and say, "Okay, yeah, I see you, man. Yeah, we don't need it. This is a nod saying I respect you, and we're gonna keep it moving."
Allowed to. But if you don't, be like, honey, I don't talk to you like that. I need you to bring it down so we can talk like civilized people. And they automatically will bring it down. And I know my father used to always say that, like, my mother, sometimes he would be upset and he would speak to her in a manner like, Mom, why don't you say something? He's like, you know what? We'll talk later. She would always bring it down, relax, and they would speak later, and she would never get out of frame. She would never get out of character. I'm like, and I would be so mad at her. I'm like, how are you just gonna let him talk to you like that? Mm-hmm. She was like the ultimate lady. She's like, he's your father,
Was that her personality, or was that because see,
she was like the ultimate lady.
That means every woman should behave the same, and that's where you're taking away the unique identity of who God has. That means no man should break down and cry, ever need a hug or affection. So that's what I'm saying. I don't like these panels.
And see, I don't think every woman is the same, but I think she learned her man. Yeah, she learned her man, and that's what he needed. Like, he didn't want an aggressive, strong woman. My mom was very feminine. She was very docile. Right. But she always remained the frame, and that's what he wanted. Some men don't want that, but she learned her man. I think that's the important.
But outside of your father, was that who your mother was?
She's still like that to this day.
What man doesn't want
when I was younger, I used to actually.
I'm glad he said that, because
I understand. But when I became like the
most men do want that,
I almost like disrespected her. I was like, Mom, how are you just gonna let him talk to you like that? And then she's like, he's your father. She would just stop. And I'm like, okay.
And that's the essence. That's what I'm saying. That was the essence of that. Had nothing to do with being feminine or masculine. That's who she is at her core. That's her DNA. Yeah. And that's all I'm saying. I cannot.
But she did, like, even though she wasn't like this a boisterous, outspoken woman, she was still the first lady of the church, and she had a strength. But even when my father passed away, I had so much respect for her, how she cared for him when he was sick, how she was there for him, how she handled his death. Like, I was like, Mom, I don't even know where you got the strength from. I gained so much respect for her in her later years. But
I'm hoping the Trigger Mike comes back and asks that question again. It's like, what men are not looking for that? The men that aren't looking for that, are they who women are? Or you know what? Let's just keep going.
I think, like, Mom, really, your goal in life was to be a mom and a wife. But, at the end of the day, now my father has passed, and she raised 5 children who now care for her. She doesn't have to work because she poured everything she had into her children, and now we're taking care of her.
There it is.
I have respect for her now. Yeah. At a young age, I didn't see it, but now as a woman, as a mother myself, I see the value that she gave to my father, the support, the love. So I do want to be more like that now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So. And I think what we're missing, y'all keep giving people the recipes to be the same. Ain't no woman gonna be the same. Ain't no man gonna be the
for
same,
sure.
Period. And that's what I'm saying. We got to get away from that. Like, you got to be this way. This is a successful relationship. No, it's not, because there's a lot of women that's their way.
Yeah, there's different dynamics between different people
that have gotten dogged the hell out. And there's a lot of men that have been really nice gentlemen and have gotten mistreated, right?
I told y'all, I'm going to keep asking this question whenever women bring that up, or men for that matter. You got women who getting dogged out. Who vetted that man for her? This is the same thing with the guy. It's like, who vetted that woman for him? Men is a little bit different, because men, it takes time for them to build up. Like, men need experiences. So, yeah, it sucks for us, right? But these experiences make us more valuable. So for men, yeah, we're going to have to go through some stuff. But for women, well, I should say for men, we have to go through stuff, and oftentimes those experiences add to our value, right? For women, it's the exact opposite. So the question then still stands: who vetted that man for her?
By way of this conversation topic, is being a good guy or whatever it is enough? And it's not. We have to create enough space on these panels to let people be themselves. Otherwise, we don't all have the same what is it called, fingerprint, blueprint, DNA. Stop telling people there's one way to be successful in a marriage. If that works for you, then you've got to show up and have enough confidence to say, this is what has worked for me and me and my wife, or me and my husband have been successful by way of this. And this is my advice. This may not work for every woman. This may not work for every man, but this is where I found success. And I feel like a lot of you are very rigid in that, very one-sided, very fixated, and you have no care outside of what you think and how people and what people are going through and the dynamics, right? Every Black woman is not the same. Every Black man is not the same. Every single mother is not the same. And y'all got to start. If you want to evolve in these spaces, you got to get away from these one-sided ass talking points. That's all I'm saying.
You know what? Believe it or not, I think this is the first time ever I actually agree with Queen Sheba. But you guys have heard me say this multiple times. You know, we need more married people making content so we get better, more different examples of ways of making marriages work. Because right now it's only like, you know, most people when the marriage content gets talked about, it's just like people got blinders on, and if it don't work like one or two ways, then we should just get divorced because this is too hard. Now, where I disagree with her is that for this talking point, they need to answer Trigger Mike's question. What men are not looking for that, for women to be feminine? Like they just walk right by that to make this other point that all women are not the same. Okay, I mean, there's different types of relationships out there. I will agree to that. But for this particular topic, we're talking about male nature, which is masculine, and female natures, which is feminine. What men are out here looking for women to go against their nature and be masculine in a heated moment? I mean, I get it because, you know, there are some benefits to masculinity when it comes to women in particular, right? Because you're in the workplace, you want to have a career, you want a career woman, then she's going to be masculine at work, and because it's going to benefit her, right? There's no question about that. But we're talking about, you know, during a potential argument. So I would love to see them answer Trigger Mike's question.
Very fixed. They're very, very rigid. It's like there's no room for error. If she doesn't operate this way, she's no good to any man. That's BS.
What I do agree, I do agree with you partially, because I do see a lot of one-sided talking points. But I know a lot of people can only speak from their experience. They don't have conversations outside of their personal circle.
But most people aren't saying this. I asked him, I said, is that what he said, I can't speak on my relationship. So we're not seeing that, Kelly, in these spaces.
Especially
you're not hearing people
say
that. I asked Trigger Mike, is that what worked for you? He said, I don't speak on my relationships. I've been trained.
I mean, let's be real. You're not asking me in the sense
I did ask you.
Real information. Come on now. Like, I talk objectively about my marriage all the time. Catch my show, Trigger Mike Show in the morning.
No, but this is my first time being on a panel with you. I have panels all the time when people come with real life, like mental health. Check my panels out.
I mean, as the conversation progresses, you will hear me talk objectively about the way I carry myself.
But I was just asking for outcomes in real life, just to.
By all means, you will get them, and I'll speak objectively about it. You will get them.
I can vouch for Trigger Mike. I feel like he's very well-rounded as far as, like, he doesn't have like those crazy manosphere talking points. He's very well-rounded, and he does, like, guys will go crazy on his panel. He's like, okay, so let's say we do hold men accountable. What does that look like? So that is something I do appreciate about Trigger Mike specifically. So
the way I see it is that we try to generalize, and when we generalize, people don't like it because not everybody's like that. They want people to be specific, and when you make it personal, they start using your personal information to attack you. That's what I've noticed in these spaces. And something that I really don't like. I personally always bring my grandparents as an example.
Here's the other problem. You have to use generalizations. Why? Because you're on a platform that's getting viewed by hundreds of thousands of people. So you start talking about your anecdotal experience. I mean, if in a panel sense, that doesn't make sense because the panels are you're supposed to represent. You're talking to a large audience, and you want the most amount of people to be able to identify with it. If you start talking about, your personal experience that worked with you that one time, like how many people are actually going to be able to relate to that? So, but on the other hand, this is why I said now that kind of that sounds like it contradicts what I said before about more married people making content, right? In actuality, it doesn't, because I've never said what kind of content that more married people need to make. See, I'm doing reaction channels. Most of the stuff I react to is going to be groups of people who are discussing things like this, like panels or in-house guests, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't. Like, I've highlighted other channels that are ran by married people. Like, in particular, there's a channel out there that I've highlighted before that they do reactions, and I think this couple is entertaining as all get out. And guys, go subscribe to their channel. If you want to see what I'm talking about, check out my community tab. Make sure you like the post. There we go. We keep it straight on that one. But back to the topic here. I still want them to address Trigger Mike's point. What men are out here looking for the opposite of what he was talking about. A woman during arguments who's not going to be feminine. Like, what guys are out here looking for that? I think that's safe to say that's the majority of men. And again, why are we talking about the majority so much, especially on this channel, right? Because that leads you down the path of using data and statistics. Because the audience is huge, and if you want to get out a message, you need to attract it to the most people. There is time for nuances, but that comes later in other videos, right? You may have a video with a very specific topic. Then you address that in that video and you title it that specific topic. But for the most part, we're having general conversations that we want the general population to look at. Well, we need to go with the general audience then.
Over 65, 70 years of marriage till death do them apart. I look at them, and Kelly was mentioning her mother, and I'm like, it's very similar to my grandmother. However, the difference is that my grandmother used to tell my grandpa, don't do that. You're gonna, something like that, because my grandpa was a stubborn man. Stubborn to his core. Stubborn. Yeah. And then he will come and say, you know what? You were right. I'm sorry. I used to see that, but he was a different man. That doesn't mean that he was not a leader. We all respect him. He left a legacy. We celebrated his life. We love my grandpa. So, and that's just the man. And to me, that's just, I cannot even explain how much respect I have for him, but for her and what she's done after his passing, oh my God, so it's different. And she is a very feminine woman. She's like, very pure to today. And, I even said it before. He had 2 kids outside of the marriage. She's giving his pension that belongs to her now. She's giving it to these kids. They're adults. They're not supposed to be getting anything. And one day someone asked her, I was just listening, someone asked her, like, why are you doing this? And then she answered, because that's what your grandfather will want me to do. She could just be keeping the money and use it for her, but she doesn't need it. And I was like, wow, I want to be as good as this woman. I want to be a little bit of her. So everybody's different, like different experiences. It doesn't have to be one mold for everything.
All right, I'm going to have Balance take us home on this one. You want to add anything else?
I mean, this specific topic, though, is a common issue. And we're talking about the majority of men and the issues that they have with women. And this specifically is a very common issue that most men have. So I think in this instance, we can speak in a general manner. Because if we're talking about what women could do differently to speak to their men in a way that is receptive, I love what Kelly said, and she was finding different ways in which to present the information so it's received in a respectful way. And I think a lot of women don't do that. It's like they try one method and they'll keep trying it over and over and over and over, and it never works, and then they get frustrated, and then they never get anywhere as a couple. Collectively, they're not growing. So I think women need to know how to present the information and when. How and when are the most important parts of communication. And even though, yes, the man is the leader, we all know that women naturally are more effective communicators naturally. So a man is a leader, but if women have that strength, then we should be the ones that bend in that aspect when it comes to trying to present the information, because that's our strength. So I think as women, we should take on that as like our role, because that's what we do well. Men do a lot of other things well in the general sense.
I agree. Social calibration is like a woman's superpower, right? It's one of the things that they're actually better at than men. And I think that a lot of times it seems like both genders will try and go on this path of what they call self-improvement, and you're improving in things that you're not really good at. I got some great advice from a wise man. His name was Arthur Williams. And he said, what you need to do is focus on the things that they're naturally good at and become great at them. No, that wasn't Arthur Williams. That was Hector Lamarck. Focus on the things that you're naturally good at, and you need to be great at that. Stop wasting time on things that you're bad at, because overall it's your greatness that you should be chasing. That's going to make the difference in your life versus you just trying to be good at everything. That just means you're a little bit above mediocre. But most people who have become great at life is because they stuck to one thing and they focused on that versus trying to be good at everything. You end up wasting a lot of time with that. But look, this is definitely a high-level conversation. We address some major issues going on in our community here, particularly how we interact with one another. In this one, it was more so focused on the women and the power of femininity, right? But we also got we finally got a panel to bring up the fact that, hey, everybody doesn't fit in this one box that we have defined for how a marriage can work. Now, was it brought up at the wrong time? Yeah, because this situation was pretty universal here. Most men don't want to argue with a masculine woman or a woman who's leading with masculinity. This is that I don't know where they got the idea that there are men out here that like to do that. Most of us don't. Let me rephrase that. Most marriage-minded men don't. You might be able to find, there are guys out there who are not looking to get married, and they will value you having masculine traits because supposedly it makes for great sex. But those men are not looking to marry you, though. So if you're a woman and you're looking to get married, you might want to do some more research on that. But that's something you definitely got to look out for. And we need to start. I think one of the things that I'm gonna start doing in the future is that we need to start making the distinction when we have these conversations and people want to talk about dating. Dating is the standard for women. Men, we need to be held to a different standard. We need to be held to marriage, because a guy will date anything just for sex. Most women want to be married, though. So I think that is one of the things that we need to start holding men accountable on is what is that guy willing to marry? The guy that you want, what is he willing to marry? Because even just jumping in a relationship, man, you will waste 5-6 years in a relationship and you want marriage and it ain't going there. So I think we're gonna do that from going forward. Is that we need to hold men to the standard of marriage. What is this guy going to marry? So look, go subscribe to the LaPeep Experience. They're having conversations like this all the time. I'm gonna say go to the next time. Peace.